Hey everybody, it's Tim Hinton, the Beast of the Marching Arts. We are live. I'm here with Jordan Lalama. Jordan, how are you?
Good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Everybody, we are going to be talking about body movement preparation. We're asking our marchers to do all this complicated stuff. They're not only having to do the usual marching and drill stuff, but now there's all kinds of movement and choreography and stuff that we're asking them to do. And Jordan is a master at that. So we are going to be picking his giant body movement preparation brain. That's the weirdest phrase I've ever said in my life. But anyway, Jordan, thank you for being here.
No problem, man. I'm not sure I've ever been called a master of anything, so that's very kind of you.
Oh, I think that there's no doubt about that. Anyway, we're talking about this in the context of the Summer Symposium. Music for All Summer Symposium is back this year, everybody. Hooray. We're back in person June 27th through July 2nd. You can find out more about that at camp.musicforall.org. And Jordan, I know everybody knows who you are. You're sort of like a celebrity in the world of marching arts in a lot of ways. But anyway, just give everybody the quick bio.
So yeah, I mean, I'm a choreographer and a visual person and a program coordinator for a bunch of groups around the country. Spent a lot of time in Tulsa working with Broken Arrow, a lot of time in Brownsburg, Indiana, working with that team there, and Mustang High School, more recently with all the inflatable sharks and dinosaurs and all of that. So yeah, I've had some really cool experiences doing a lot of different things, around the country. So yeah, kind of just visual all around everywhere is the bio, I guess.
Right. And I can't start this conversation, of course, without saying congratulations for the great fall all those groups had. And of course, the Broken Arrow. What a season. That had to be just an amazing experience.
It was fun, man. It was just one of those years and one of those nights that's, super magical and you're just grateful to be a part of. So yeah, it was awesome.
Fantastic. Okay, so the topic at hand, everybody, this is Jordan Lalama, and he is here to talk about body movement preparation. Jordan, you're the visual caption head at the marching band track. So tell us about what you do there at the Summer Symposium with the marching band track. By the way, if I may do this and have you fill the screen, I didn't warn you. So just don't think that I've gone away if that happens. So anyway, tell us about the marching band track at the Summer Symposium and what you do.
Yeah, so really with the Summer Symposium, it's kind of just a week-long cumulative environment to get the students prepared to do a show with Carolina Crown. And along the lines of that, it's also there to help them take different elements of music, visual, choreography back to their own marching bands as well. So it's kind of a twofold thing that we do there. It's a lot of fun. I think that's number one. It's just a lot of fun. And a lot of times you think of like band camp, like, man, it's just a lot of hard work, and it is, but man, we just have a really good time teaching all these different elements, and there's just the knowledge base of the teachers that are there, programs from all across the country, doing what they're truly excellent at. And then the students kind of just get to glean and to ask questions and again, take that information back to their programs and then get to perform with Crown at the end, which I think is obviously one of the biggest draws for them and just one of the most exciting things, that they could be a part of. So yeah, it's a really cool long week. And I get to do a lot of the visual stuff and the choreography and help teach the drill and, kind of figure out how this is all going to fit within the Crown show and all of that. So it's pretty neat.
It's very, very cool. Listen, everybody, if you're watching, I'm talking to Jordan Lalama. He's the visual caption head at the marching band track at the Summer Symposium that's back this year. And Jordan, I've had lots of conversation with people about the Summer Symposium, about being there, and everybody says the same thing, like just being there in this environment for a week. It's sort of like you're getting all your veggies that you need to go back to your own band, and you're learning things. You're being around a lot of really smart people. You're being inspired by a lot of really smart people. The staff, much less the other directors that are there in the director's track, the other students, like everybody sort of feeds off the energy and excitement from everybody.
Yeah, I think at least from our staff, it's one of those things. Like we have a little group me that's like 200 days until camp, so it's like this big kind of just drawn out excitement, and then when we get there, it's kind of like for the whole year, you've just been ready to explode. Because especially in the marching band track, like a lot of us are like best friends. It's not just like, oh, we're like randomly picked. Like we have had a relationship with each other for a very long time. Some of us work at the same programs together, and so there's just a lot of joy that comes with the staff teaching that, and I think that it shows when we do start teaching it, like just how excited we are. And now that we've been gone for 2 years now, I think in a row, now it's been like 800 days since we've been, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
It really is one of those things. And then the students always just kind of bring it, because for the most part, it's students who really want to be there, who really want to level up, who really are searching how to be the leader in their own band, who really do geek out over the band stuff all the time, and then, we're just there to feed that geekiness, like, come on, like, let's get all this information in. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, whether you're a student or a director, it's just really nice to feel like you're not the weird one. Like everybody there is just as geeky and excited about marching and learning all this stuff and learn to play their instrument better and learn to move better in this realm of choreography and show design. So it's really cool just to be around other people that are just as cool, as into it as you are. I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, that's a pretty good point, because I think that as teachers, we all kind of have our own thing that we're passionate about, or maybe we geek out on, like a lot of visual people geek out on like leg shape and everything. And you're going to find people there that are also like you in that regard, which is not always the case. You know what I mean? Especially if you're hanging out like with normal people who don't know about band, like, sometimes it's hard to like,
Yeah, you're not getting together with pizza with your friends and talk about, let's talk about leg shape and this broken arrow thing we're doing. Like they're going to be like,
right.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, which is fine, but it's fun to be around other people. That's what I kind of remember it's like when I first went to be a part of the all-state band, or like when I first went to drum corps. Like everybody is just as into it and crazy about it as I am, and that was like really made me feel better about me. Not that I thought I was weird, but I just knew like I was into it more than a lot of people I knew.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, it's nice to have that community of people who are kind of all passionate about the same thing, and can kind of see why you are as well. Like why you like it so much, and why it brings you so much joy or happiness, or or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's a really cool week for that as well. With all the students from, again, all over the country kind of coming together, because like it's one thing for us as adults to be able to do it, but then like when other people from other programs, like, they've seen each other on Box 5 or Flow Marching or whatever, you're like, oh, you're part of that band, you did that show, and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of chatter around that stuff too. So it's just really cool to kind of see everybody come together and have that experience, with the Summer Symposium. So
that's very cool. Hey, if you're watching live, everybody, I'm talking to Jordan Lalama, and he is a visual marching guru that we all know about. And we're talking about the fact that he's going to be there at the Summer Symposium with a lot of other really smart people back this summer, June 27th through July 2nd. And if you're watching right now, comment, let us know where you're watching from. There's somebody from Facebook, Jordan, that says, Jordan, I love teaching with you. You are indeed a master. So I'm not the only one that's using that word. So there's 2 people at least that think you're a master. So there you go. More than that, I'm sure.
We found the only 2 people in the world. That's
well, thank goodness they signed on today. No, I'm just kidding. No, you're great at what you do, and in the work with the groups you're doing certainly proves that. So we're here to talk about body movement preparation. Here's this thing, everybody. We want our students in our marching bands to be able to do these contemporary things, do the choreography, move certain ways. It's not just 8 to 5 across the field or learning a slide. Jordan, we have to prepare their bodies for that. We don't want students to get hurt. And we want them to be able, you have to learn certain things to be able to do it. Sort of like a dancer. You have to learn the basics before you can do the fancy leaps and jumps and things. So how do you start this conversation with somebody? If somebody's saying like, I want to start preparing my band to do more body movement kind of stuff, where do you start that conversation?
Well, I think that there's 2 very important things that you need to keep in mind when you're learning how to do choreography, or even marching, basics or whatever. Kind of the way that I teach it, it's kind of all the same thing now. I don't really separate choreography and marching technique anymore. But, I think that there's a physical level of things, and then there's a practical level of things. And on the physical level, and this is going to be one that we probably already know, we kind of have an understanding of, but, stretching and strength training, 100% everything becomes easier when you have strength and flexibility. As the years have gone by, we have really elevated the choreography game in the marching arts. Even when I marched in high school in 2002, 3, 4, which doesn't seem like that long ago, but I guess it is now, like we were doing like plies and lunges, and we thought we were changing the world. And now it's like, if you don't do plies and lunges, like that's just such a basic thing that everybody does now. It's a part of the ether. So it's interesting how it's progressed. So we have to be flexible in our bodies to be able to progress to a part where you are jumping or you are doing sit rolls, you are getting in and out of the ground very, very fast. And I think that within that, there's two kinds of stretching. There's stretching where you stay in one place, and like you are just like touching your toes, which is an important thing to do. And then there's more of kinetic stretching, where you are moving and stretching at the same time. And I think for me, that's always kind of been the more important one to get your body prepared to do things. One, it's teaching your body how to move just in general, which is good when we're talking about movement, but also it allows your muscles to move and stretch at the same time, so that there's a lot more quicker response to what your muscles are doing, as opposed to your body just being cold. Say like I just wake up, and I do like a touch my toes stretch. My body is essentially in a cold state. So it's not warm and it's not getting kinetically active while I'm doing that. So I think incorporating some sort of kinetic stretching into your warm up is an incredibly important thing to get the body warm as well. And the more and more you do that, the more and more flexible your body becomes over time. I think, sorry, go on.
No, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I was going to say that really rings true for me, because as Jordan and I were talking before we started, I've been doing a lot of martial arts training the last 6 or 7 years, and that's exactly the way that works. Like you start with the very basic movements, and then you warm up your body and you start to move more and more, and you sort of warm your body up. But over time, doing that day after day after day, week after week, your body becomes stronger, more flexible, and you can do those things better. But Jordan, the thing is, we can't just throw in those kilos. Let's suddenly do a plie. Like you have to prepare them to be able to do that safely and correctly.
Right. Yeah. I know. And when you think about just choreography in general, plies or lunges or whatever, essentially there's a stretch aspect to all of those things, because you're lowering yourself into a position or you're pushing your body into a position. And so, it's just like the body positioning of a lunge. Say you want to make sure that your knee doesn't go past your toe if your heel's still on the ground, because bad things can happen to your knee and to your Achilles when you do that. So there's number one for me when I'm doing choreography with anybody is safety always comes first. And obviously the number one thing for safety is to make sure that the body is warmed up and ready to do what you're asking your body to do, and it seems really simple, but we have to make sure that we allow the time to do that every single day.
Right. And realize it's not a waste of time, because you're building that strength and you're making it safe to do those moves. So I have to stop for a minute and say, Jordan, if I was a band director and I was hearing this conversation, I tell you what I would do is I would make sure that my drum majors and maybe all my section leaders go to this symposium, go through your marching band track. They're going to come out of that week with a lot of knowledge that they can bring back to my band.
Yeah, and we'll see, and Jeff Young and Chris Catholic and myself, we kind of all team up to do this, but you'll see before every rehearsal, there's some sort of kinetic movement stretching happening, all the time. And obviously within the Summer Symposium context, we only have so much time to do stuff there, especially when we have to learn drill sets for the crown show and all the fundamentals, which are so important. And we still make sure that we allot 10 to 15 minutes every single day to do the stretch, because it's so important to do that. So put that into your regular band camp or your band day over a season. you got to have it in there. It's got to be a part of it, because the one thing is, it's not a waste of time, because if somebody gets hurt and now you have a hole for the whole season, that's more of a waste of time. Now you have to fix the whole drill and all of that. So, the preparation actually allows you not to have bigger, quote unquote, waste time.
Right. And it's like learning your scales and doing slurs on your trumpet or whatever. Like, you're preparing yourself to play the music and to play the music well. And we know that if I have those scales under my finger, then it takes me less time to learn the music. And I can, I don't have to relearn how to do every single thing. It's the same concept here, right? I'm learning the basics of how to move my body correctly, how to be able to stretch, have the strength I need, so that when the time comes to learn it, I'm not starting from ground zero. Like, I'm ready for that information.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the things that I've seen in a lot of different programs, across the country, are some of them are teaming up with, the strength and conditioning coaches for the football team, and they're like cutting a deal that, like, hey, can we have some time in the summer, that we can do some strength training, or maybe some of them, know yoga, for instance, because the one great thing about yoga is that, essentially choreography is broken down to shapes and lines. That's all choreography is. Sometimes the shapes and lines are moving, and sometimes they're standing still, but that's all choreo is you're making a shape, or you're making a line with your body. And does everybody have that same shape and line look? And yoga utilizes shapes and lines a lot within just inherently what it does. If you look at a lot of, choreo that's happening, you're like, oh, that's a yoga pose, so. And it also helps stretch out the body. So there, you're kind of killing 10 birds with one stone with there, so that's something that I think that I try to get people, band directors, to get creative with. Like, what's a way in the off season that you can utilize what you already have at the school, what's already happening with other students at the school, with other activities, whether it be the football team or the soccer team or the basketball team or whatever. Most of them have a strength and conditioning person. And most of those strength and conditioning people really care about, the physical health of the students at the school. So, one thing is, like, it never hurts to ask. So I think that utilizing that and utilizing what your school already has, because again, everything becomes easier when you have strength and flexibility when it comes to choreography. So
yeah, and I love that you just mentioned all that stuff about yoga, by the way, everybody. And Jordan, you may know this. I had a podcast conversation. It's podcast 1030 with Jeff Young, who's at the Summer Symposium course, and Dan Berard, and they talked about using yoga as part of their movement training with their band. So everybody, you can find a whole podcast about that, where they talk about how they used yoga. Same concept you're just saying, Jordan, exactly. Like, you need that flexibility, that strength that comes through the yoga movements to get your students ready for the same kind of movements they're going to be doing in the choreography. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. There's a podcast about that. If you just go to marchingartseducation.com and just put yoga in the search bar, it'll come right up.
Perfect. We're getting all of it in.
We're getting it all in.
So then I think, when you talk about preparing the body, the first thing the mind kind of goes to, just like, oh, you have to be prepared physically to do those things. But then there's also a practical level of that you have to be prepared for. And I think that this one comes to how do you explore your body so that you're ready to make choreography look like choreography, so it doesn't just look like you're flailing around, or, you're doing some sort of movement with your body, but you're now training your body to actually essentially have the essence of a dancer. And so in preparing the body, one of the things, and I'd take this on as the practical level, you have to have some sort of musical training when it comes to this, and rhythmic training. Now, 100%, not everybody is as rhythmically gifted as everybody else. So there are just some people that don't have, rhythm, quote unquote. But I've also found, and this is something that I kind of gleaned from Richard Saucedo when he was my band director. I was pretty much tone deaf in high school. Like, I could not do anything, I couldn't hear anything.
Wow.
And so I remember him saying one time that tone deaf it's not just a curse for your whole life. It's just a lack of practice being tone deaf. He's like, no, maybe you're not going to have perfect pitch, but it's just a lack of practice, you being tone deaf. And I remember back in those days, when I marched Carmel way back in the day, we would do interval training and we would sing all the time. And then I remember by the time I left, I really did have a good understanding of, pitch and tone and all of that. And I think rhythmic training is a lot like that. Just because you don't have rhythm, it's not just a curse that you're going to have for your whole life, but it is a lack of practice. So one thing that I like to do is I try to like to get the students just like natural rhythm going, wherever they're starting from. And so a lot of times on day one, we'll just put pop music on and we'll just start moving our body to it, and it's one of those things that obviously is progressive because in the beginning of the season, a lot of the students are going to be in their shell, they're going to be very like, oh, I don't know about this. But 100%, every single student who is in marching band likes music at some level. And, they've all been in their car and they've all bobbed their head to like Katy Perry or whoever, you know what I mean? Like they've all been right here. So we try to start there. And then I try to start building exercises where they're always moving to the rhythm all the time. Always having music on in the background. No matter what we do, there's a timing aspect to it so that they're getting used to their body moving in a certain time, and obviously this can go towards marching technique as well. And obviously, feet got to be in time and all of that. But, choreography, a lot of it does come, within the Christmas of movements and, kind of the understanding that eventually you have to be the representation of the music that you are dancing to. It can't just be about counts. It can't just be about, the beat, that you're riding to. It has to be like when I'm watching you, you are representing what I'm hearing. And you have to start that somewhere. So I think preparing the body from a practical level, you have to get the musical and rhythmic training there first. And that has to happen from day one. And just like everything else, that has to be worked on every single day at some level, just like the stretching. Because again, it's not, if you're rhythmically challenged, it's not a curse, but it does have to be learned, right? And that's another part of preparing the body that I think is very, very important, especially if choreography is something that you really want to implement into your shows and you really want to start exploring that world, because there's so much to do with it,
Right. And we watch a group like Broken Arrow and they're moving so amazingly. And listen, everybody, that did not happen like in 10 minutes, nor in 1 year. So I like to remind people, like, you can start where you are, start where your students are, and then build gradually over time. So add some skills the first year, whatever. So Jordan, that's part of it too, is start this idea, start the movement, start the kinetic stretching, start the choreo and stuff. But we want to have a plan to get where we want to get. That seems like really obvious now that I'm saying that out loud. But anyway, like I feel like a lot of times people are very intimidated by it because they see these top groups moving. Like how can I possibly, these kids can hardly lunge and point. Well, you start with a lunge and point, and then you build from there. But you're right. We can all tell when a group has the right training and that lunge and point is musical,
right,
and in the style of what we're trying to do, as opposed to just something that they learned.
Well, and honestly, a lunge and point can be just as effective as something crazy if it's used in the right way.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just got to keep it simple, stupid. You know what I mean? Like, and not go crazy over it. But to your point, I think depending on where the group that you're working with is, or where your group is as a director, if you're just getting into this, start with 5 things, plies, lunges, tendus, maybe like a rond de jambe, and then put a chasse in there so you have some sort of movement, and just work on those 5 those 5 elements or those 5 skills, and then just beat those skills to death over and over and over and over again that whole first year. Well, if you do that, then by the time you come onto the second year, you have 5 skills that they know very, very well. And then that second year, you have a new freshman class. Then add 2 more skills, like maybe like, oh, hey, like we're going to get into a sit roll here. Well, the first 5 skills are going to be known by 75% of the group. And then the freshmen coming in are going to be like, well, this is just what we do. It's not going to be like any different for them, and then eventually you do get to the point, where you're like, oh, this is just what we do, like from Broken Arrow, for instance, like, yeah, like that has been years and years and years and years, even before I even got there, they have been doing that at a very high level and excellent. And so now when the freshmen come in, we're like, the show's going to be this year. So we know that we're going to have to move like this. Well, all of our skill set are already implemented. And the freshmen just come in like, well, I guess this is just what we do. You're like, yep, here we go. You know what I mean? Like, because the sophomores, juniors, and seniors are already like, yeah, like this is the skill set. These are the levels. And I can understand why somebody would be intimidated by it at first, because we all want to do the things that we feel like we're great at. And I think, unfortunately, something in music education that's kind of lost, and I don't know if it's really at the college level or where it is, but a lot of directors, when they get into into actual band directing, a lot of the choreography stuff, like they just have never learned, and so it's just one of those things that you don't know what you don't know, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you do want to do the things that you're great at. But at the same time, this is something that's not going away. You know what I mean? It's only getting crazier. So I do think that starting, with 5 really simple things, and building on from there. So
it's great advice. And I got to tell you, it can be intimidating how much our activity changes. I had this conversation recently with somebody talking about, like college basketball, college basketball coaches, like that game is pretty much the same. Like there are some wrinkles to it and some new things that people do, but like, you teach basketball the way, but like marching band is every year there's something new. It keeps changing. That's really the whole concept behind what we're doing here at Marching Arts Education, is we just want to help people stay up and help them learn the new things and not be scared by it. But just there are people out there like Jordan right now who's explaining these things that are very helpful. There are lots of people doing that, and you can find that information at our website or wherever you find it to just sort of stay current. Not be intimidated by it. And like you said, Jordan, I love that idea of like, let's just learn a couple things. Let's add these couple things this year. Let's make that part of our movement training. I already know how to teach them slides in 8 to 5. Okay, now let's add these things. Each year we add more, and then it just becomes part of what we do.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things too, as far as, directors and everything, like, feel free to be creative with it, because I think some of the best things that have ever kind of happened, with me and with the group is like when I've just had like a really idea that I feel like was stupid at the time, and then tried it, and then it kind of worked, and it was like, oh my gosh, like this totally like helped them big time. And I kind of just like thought of this idea, in bed one night, and I thought it was going to be really dumb. They're somersaulting around the field, but wow, it really helped them in this regard. I think the best teachers that I've, learned from, it's people that aren't afraid to try something new, because if it doesn't work, just don't do it again, but if it works, and I think that goes to your point of the activity is changing pretty quickly. So it's not like we're trying to reinvent the wheel, because there are some tried and true things that work, with this activity for sure. Concert F is always going to be Concert F, and, there it is. But then there's some other, things that as we're getting more expressive, as we're trying to break into even a bigger idea and sense of pageantry, we're going to have to do different things, not only to get the students good at it, but also to do it within the time frame that we have, because we don't have 5 years on one production. Like we have the same amount of time, it's this amount of months. And so now it's like, okay, how can we get there faster? And I think that's when you start looking at like, okay, well, we do this 8 to 5, we march for 8 and we hold for 8. Well, is there something that we can do within that 8 count hold that's going to take the same amount of time, but also get them a rep? So maybe if you're just starting out, you move for 8, you lunge for 4, come in for 2, and then do another 8. So you still have your 8, hold 8, but one of them in that hold 8, you lunge, then you come in. So they're always kind of incorporating choreography into what they're doing. And it kind of gives them more of like a real world sense of, oh, like, well, we're going to be doing that in the show. We might as well do it here.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that idea of like sitting down and playing. I mean, there's obviously some pros to sitting down and playing, but a lot of the most successful teachers and people that I've seen that are good at teaching outdoor music are always teaching music on the move, or always teaching music standing up with the posture, because you only have so much time, so you got to get all of these things, all of these elements that you want your students to learn. You got to get them in there, so it does become challenging to that. But be creative, and maybe you'll stumble on a thing that's like, wow, that's the coolest thing that's ever happened to my students. So.
I love it. Everybody, I'm talking to Jordan Lalama, who we all know from Broken Arrow and many other programs. And he is there at the Summer Symposium, Music for All Summer Symposium, back this year, June 27th through July 2nd. A leadership weekend right before it, 25 through 27 in June. Really looking forward to that. And I'm glad you're the visual caption head at the marching band track. Mm-hmm. Listen, everybody, get your students there. Get some of your students there, if not all of your students. Get somebody there to learn these things, have that experience. It happens right before your season starts, so that you can have them come bring that energy and excitement, or go yourself as a director and get that same energy, excitement that you need to be ready for your season. Jordan, before we go, I know we've been talking long enough. I need to let you go, but I do want to ask you, you mentioned that you've been working at Mustang. We have people in blow up shark outfits and dinosaur outfits. Is there a special challenge to teaching body movement within a blow up dinosaur or a blow up shark?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I knew there would be, but I don't know if you can answer that in 1 minute or not. I don't know, but
it's challenging. I think, it's challenging. It's so challenging that it's kind of hard to articulate it. Wes Cartwright kind of made those shows. I mean, he was the program coordinator, came up, with those ideas. And I remember the first time he told me about it, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? And honestly, I have to give a lot of, maybe the majority of the props, to him for helping me through that. Because 100%, it's one of those things where, because it's not really been done before, or maybe even like at a high level done before, I can't remember when it's been done. Like, it's one of those things that you just try and then get wrong, or like I would be, up in my house. My wife made fun of me big time. Like when we did the dinosaur one, like I was in the dinosaur in my house, seeing if I could do a sit roll in the dinosaur costume, and it just blows up, like it just pops, and I'm like, well, can't do that. So I think, it's the same elements that you always have with anything else. Like, we need to have some sort of, visual motif, but honestly, it's one of those things that it was challenging. And you got to give a lot of credit to the students that were doing it, because they're hot. Your awareness of everything is gone. Like what you can see, like, is like this, right? So you got to give a lot of credit to there, and then you got to give a lot of credit to the Mustang staff too. I mean, it definitely is an all-in process to try to get something like that done. But I will say this, like, anybody who is maybe on the fence of really going for the choreography thing, like, let that be encouraging to you, because Mustang's been a good program for a very long time. But this is one of those risks and chances that, you're like, what's going to happen? And we all worked really hard to make sure that it was done right, and it ended up, both those shows ended up being pretty good, I thought. But let that encourage you, like, take the risk. And if your risk is just, hey, we need to put plies and lunges and we need to, then do it. And I would say too, to your point about the directors coming to the Summer Symposium, it's one of the most awesome things to be at the Summer Symposium and to be able to talk to the directors that are there, because everybody on the marching band staff, and I know, like, Susie Harloff and that whole color guard staff, like, we're so eager and have so much fun talking to the directors that are there and talking about their programs. And I think it's one of those just weird times where you can kind of just sit back and relax and have a talk with some of these people that are doing some of these things that maybe you wouldn't have had the opportunity to talk to before. Maybe you thought about emailing at some point, but you just never did. So that's one of the coolest things for us, is to talk to those directors and encourage them and give them ideas and all of that. So
I love that you just said that. Coming up on Monday, there's a special podcast with Susie Harloff and a director who was at the director track with the color guard and a student who came as a student track for color guard. And they talk about that very thing. And everybody, you need to make sure you catch that on Monday at the Marching Roundtable, because exactly what you're saying, Jordan, like they realized, they got encouraged. They realized they could do more than they even thought. And people are sort of encouraging them to be bold and try things. And they both describe how, they ended up doing things they never imagined they could do because of that experience of being there and being in that environment and having that encouragement. Just can't underestimate how powerful that can be in someone's life. So everybody check out that conversation with Susie and those two color guard people on Monday. It's really, really fantastic. Jordan, I've taken way more of your time than I expected. I don't want to take any more, but what do you want to say in closing about, you've already said it, of course, encourage people to be bold, try it, add these things, take the next step for your program. What would you want to say in closing?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll say it in twofold. One, if you're thinking about coming to the symposium, come to the symposium, and especially from a choreography standpoint, if you're a percussion, color guard, or winds, there's going to be some sort of choreography on all three levels, of those instrumentations. So come to the symposium, have your kids come to the symposium. It's going to be awesome. And then as far as the choreography thing goes, I make sure that safety is always the number one priority when it comes to choreography, and preparing the body is the number one thing. Stretching, strength, conditioning, training, everything becomes easier when you're strong and you're flexible. And then as you go on that journey, start having fun with it. Have fun with the idea that your students are going to be able to do things that they weren't able to do before. You're going to be able to have, a bigger palette of things that you can put into your shows once you start that. So I think everybody's on a different kind of path and journey, of where they are in their choreography journey. And no matter where you are in it, there's always the next step. So keep pushing that next step, because it's really you guys that are kind of pushing us all to do new things and, try new things and all of that. So
yeah, we want to take our program to the next place. How can we grow? How can we do more? How can we be better? How can we give a better experience to our students? And being at the Summer Symposium is one of the great ways to do it. Everybody, Music for All Summer Symposium, go to camp.musicforall.org to find out more about that. June 27th through July 2nd. Jordan will be there as part of the marching band track. Jordan, thank you for talking to me. This was really, really fun. And everybody watching, if you thought this was helpful and interesting, share, let everybody know that this is here. This conversation is here. Wherever you're watching it, the recording will be here. Jordan, thank you so much for talking to me today. This was great.
Thanks, Tim. It's always good to see you, man.
It's a lot of fun. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks, Jordan. Great job.